Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Forbes Cybersecurity Briefing. This week, we're going to talk about security versus compliance, understanding the difference, and why security should lead and compliance should follow. Yet again, I'm John Fowle, COO of Forbes Cybersecurity and IT Services. Been doing this since 2007 professionally. Company's been around since 1996. We focus on providing exceptional cybersecurity and IT services to Cincinnati area businesses. We want to help make you as secure as possible, and education is a key part of that. So cyber threats are constantly evolving, and you know this if you've been around and listening to any of our talks and all those sorts of things. And so what we want to do is how do we maintain a structure to stay on top of those cyber threats, and how do we do the things that are necessary to keep your company and these Cincinnati area businesses safe? Well, what we're seeing here is that compliance can push your ability to be more secure, but we're seeing a pretty big misunderstanding between what is security's role and what is the compliance role, and how they're interlinked together is often misunderstood. And really understanding how those go together can help you build the effective risk management program for your company. So what is security? Well, the goal of security is obviously to make it so your company's secure. Well, what does that mean? That means for us, our ethos is that your employees can sit down and do their jobs. And then on top of that, we help make your data safe and make sure it only stays in the hands of the people that you want it to be in the hands of. And so you really want to look at preventing downtime and data leakage. And what security really is it's a combination of tools, processes, procedures, and things like that to protect systems and data. Where the negatives of this become from, and this is one of the reasons why compliances exist, is that if you don't have expertise in doing this, it can be very difficult to get set up and running. There's a lot of moving pieces, and it's overwhelming and daunting, but it's very difficult for, unless you have a cybersecurity background, to get these things off the ground. So then what is compliance's goals? Well, compliance is adherence to regulation, standards, and policies. And what it is it's things that are set up to, you follow these procedures and you come up with these procedures and you follow them, and your company will be more secure. Great, right? I don't have any problem with that. But one of the issues that we'll see, and we'll talk about it in a little bit going in the future, is that if you don't have a basis of security and then you're trying to go down compliance, you can start going down rabbit holes that don't do the things to effectively secure you first. And there's a little bit of chicken and the egg scenario, but we'll go from there. But some examples of standards are like the Center for Internet Security, CIS, National Institute of Standards of Technology. Those are kind of more generalized ones. But then you have HIPAA, PCI if you take credit cards, there's CMMC, all those sorts of things. And their focus areas are documentations, policies, procedures, audits, secure certifications, things like that, in order to help maintain your security readiness. And one of the cons of, and we'll talk about this in the future, is that they're sometimes rigid and difficult to implement. They're painted with a wide brush that doesn't have a lot of flexibility to the specific needs of your organization. So let's look at the differences. So security is fast. It can be implemented rapidly, make changes rapidly. Compliance has a lot more pieces that you have to keep track of, and it's not as slow. Security is more flexible, that you can make changes rapidly, and compliance is more rigid. Oftentimes it'll say things like, hey, if you're a 1,000-person company or you're a 5-person company, you need to do specific things in order to be compliant, and it doesn't have those flexibilities to show those things. Security is often focused on results. So how many things did we block? How many bad guys did we get out of things? How many of those things happened? And compliance is a focus on policies and process, i.e. Making sure that the little things are done, that old user accounts are turned off, that you know who has access to what data, that privilege access management, those sorts of things happen, and that you're following these procedures and best practices to help keep you secure. They're both necessary. So I want to get that out of the way. Every security provider that you're working with should have their should have their security practices based on some kind of policies and procedures that they follow, even if it's some internal compliance that they follow that's not 100% of a standard. But if everything is being done ad hoc, then nothing is being done correctly and you're not really secure. So you need both of those sides of the coin to really work together in order for an effective cybersecurity program for your and risk management program for your business. So why should security come first? And so we're huge proponents of this. Compliance can be slow to implement and it can be difficult, just like security, if you don't have the background to go through. So we really are proponents of what we call the 80-20 rule. And so that means providing 20% of the work to get 80% of the way towards a goal. And security first really is part of that in what we do. So when we bring on a new company into our infrastructure, within the first couple of weeks, almost every one of these companies is 80% more secure than they were before they had us. And it obviously depends on what you had running, but this is across the board. We do more for cybersecurity than most other places around. So once you get our software packages installed on your computers and they start to lock things down in a way that allows end users to work, but that makes the hackers' lives harder, we do the least amount of effort gets you the greatest amount of results. Then you start looking at the other things that need to be done. So you grab the low-hanging fruit first and the things that make you most secure and take the biggest bite out of security first, and then you work on going through the other things. And it's easier to become compliant after implementing security. So if you already are doing security practices like just removing old licenses and making sure that have an inventory of systems and know where things sit and how data flows through your network and all those sorts of things, then it becomes, okay, you get those written down into a policy that then overrides what your thing is, and that can go to the compliance depending on the different standards. And compliancy supports security from that aspect. So you start to have things, okay, this is what you're not doing in order for the compliancy standard. Well, that should make you more secure, right? So if you don't have the documented security measures and you're not doing consistent practices, how long has it been since you last did a review of the Office 365 structure, for example, the things that we've talked about in previous videos about password management? Are people using good passwords? Training, are you sure that people are being trained? Are you sure that old user accounts are turned off, that multi-factor authentication is everywhere? All those sorts of things, those are all part of compliance that say you're supposed to be doing those things, and they go hand in hand with security. And cybersecurity is about doing little things well, and the compliance standards, almost all of them, that's what their big focus on is trying to limit the things that you're missing that are leaving you at risk. But they take time to do. And one of the reasons that they take time to do is they align with legal and industry expectations. So if you're under a certain specific compliance, and we'll talk about that in a second, but if you're under specific compliance, they say you need to do specific things regardless of the size of your organization. And those are designed in order to comply with generally industry things, or to make it so you can get access to do certain things, work with the DoD, all those sorts of pieces. And then we'll talk about the FTC, or not the FTC data safeguards. We'll talk about the Ohio Safe Harbor law for cybersecurity. It helps companies avoid fines and reputational damage if you're following a compliance framework or a compliance standard, and you can prove it. Then if you do go through a cyber incident, then your liability is legally limited by the state of Ohio to a certain extent. Like you can't, certain class action lawsuits can't apply to you and things like that because you've done your due diligence and you can prove it, right? So how do you choose a framework for you? Well, many, like I said, are driven by industry regulations. So we'll use CMMC, for example. That one is driven by if you want to be somebody in the Defense Department supply chain and do work on government contracts, or even subcontractors for people who have government contracts, then they might require you to be CMMC compliant for that. FTC data safeguards. So the Gramm-Leach-Blakely Act, it was expanded to include a whole bunch of other companies that had access to financial data. So things like car dealerships and the finance person at a car dealership, that you give your financial information over to so you can apply for a loan, they're now included in needing to have these standards to keep that data safe. Same with CPA firms and other things like that. So your industry will drive a lot of these things. And then there's other ones that are not industry specific, like your CIS controls or your NIST cybersecurity framework. A lot of the other, like CMMC is based off of NIST 853 or NIST 800-171, for example. So they kind of intertwine to a certain example, but the cybersecurity framework is a little bit more forgiving for companies that want to kind of like bake their own cybersecurity procedures, as long as you're following their 5 tenets of identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And they've even changed the framework. So they've changed it to add governance inside of there. And one of the reasons that they did so was so that the business leadership would be more involved as a whole in this process, to understand that cyber risk management and cybersecurity goes hand in hand with your entire risk management procedures overall. And so it's not just an IT question. It's not just a cybersecurity provider question. It is realistically a question for the entire business leadership of is the ethos of my company bought into cybersecurity, and how does that happen? So compliance can really bring the company together and make the operations even better, because now there's a better understanding of how everything works interchangeably, because there's an overriding picture to look at everything. Cyber insurance can push compliance. We've seen it happen. There's certain requirements that they are making that are even outside of the other compliances that are best practice. For you to get cyber insurance coverage, you need to be doing certain things. And so they give you those guidelines. And we've seen cases of companies that if they're doing more than that, then sometimes their budgets goes down. And then you need to make some decisions, like larger organizations. What kind of data do you have? There's more people that you have to look at now if you're a larger organization. So the cyber security and cyber compliance gets a little bit more daunting how do you keep track of everything that's going on? But even small companies have sensitive data, so they might have to be higher level compliance than others, depending on what data they hold. And then we've seen a lot of times where you can get a competitive advantage. If you jump on CMMC earlier from your competitors, you're at an opportunity right now where you can get access to bidding for some jobs that your competitors won't get if they haven't gone through this process. And so there's really a reason to choose it from there. And you need to decide, what do I want to do based on my budgetary concerns and my cyber appetite, or my cyber risk appetite? So, don't wait on compliance to start cybersecurity. I've seen it happen. We'll have companies that come us and they're talking about access control and things like that. And we start to ask, okay, well, I'm looking to go down the route of CMMC. And we look and they don't even have antivirus installed everywhere across the board. And it's like, well, let's do the things that get you secure first, and then do that in the method that moves the whole ship towards compliance. But let's not put the cart before the horse here. And all these things have the same goal of security in mind. Let's do the low-hanging fruit of security first, and then work to get you compliant after that. They're distinct, but they're different. But they're complementary. You want to have whatever you're doing, even if you're not specifically following a compliance. You want to what is your IT company? What is your cybersecurity practices based off of? Ours here are mainly based off of the NIST cybersecurity framework, but there should be some kind of overriding plan as to what's going on. It shouldn't be seat of your pants. Like, there should be a reason why all these softwares are installed. How do they work together? What do they do to actually make your company better? And then, build a cyber strategy that promotes both effectively. That's going to be really key to being as secure as you can be. There will never be, I'm 100% secure company. That will never exist. There's always risks that you'll carry, but you need to have some way to identify and figure out what that risk appetite is. And that's where the frameworks, the compliance, and some of the and cybersecurity in general can help you with those sorts of things. Yet again, I'm John with Forbes Cybersecurity and IT Services. We're happy that you're here. Please follow us on all the social medias. We post a lot on LinkedIn. We post a lot on YouTube. Go and follow us on our website, Forbes.com/blog. That's where we post a lot of articles about information that's needed to keep you and your business safe. If you have any questions for me, you'd like to reach out and talk forward, please give us a call, 513-494-4444. And we'd be happy to give a conversation started about how we can keep you and your company more secure. Yet again, thanks for being here. We'll talk soon.